All right, 3 o'clock chat here. The Pac-12 is expanding. Announced last night that Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State and the conference will need to add 2 schools by the end of next year to keep their FBS status. Former Coug Alex Brink says the move could bring great benefits.
And regardless, this conference is going to have a bid in the college football playoff no matter what. And so you're playing for that college football playoff bid, and there's a potential, if you get enough teams in, you may have a 2-bid league with how good they are.
He'll join the show coming up at 3:20. Civil War coming up on Saturday. Kickoff at 12:30 from Research Stadium. Pregame at 10:30. It's on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KEX. Justin Myers is going to stop by the show at 4:20 to discuss. We got some college football action today. 2-0 Arizona State plays at 2-0 Texas State. Kickoff at 4:30 on ESPN. ASU favored by 2.5. Thursday Night Football, AFC East matchup. Bills at the Dolphins. Josh Allen 10-2 against the Dolphins. Miami favored by 2.5. Kickoff at 5:15 on Prime Video.
The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
You got to be available for your teammates to be out there to go help win. So, again, I have to focus on what today brings.
Here's a 1-2. And Ohtani belts this one to right center field and deep. This one heading back. It's gone. A line drive out of here. Into the home run seats. An absolute laser beam for Shohei Ohtani. And it's home run number 47 for the Big Show.
The thing about me is, man, I don't want attention. I don't want to be like cameras out, phones on you, in that moment. But at the end of the day, I'm human. I gotta follow rules. I gotta do what everyone else would do.
If I'm not in the press box, I'm spoiled. Too many years in the press box. If I'm not in the press box, I'm at home. I don't want to sit in the stands, honestly. Too many drunks, too many fights, too much going on. Too many things get spilled. I don't need it.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad starts now.
All right, we have a very busy Thursday Rip City Drive for you. Our college football and NFL insider, Alex Brink, former Coug, now with eForce Football, eForce Fitness, going to join the show coming up at 3:20. And, of course, we'll talk about Pac-12 expansion with him. We'll take a look at the Apple Cup, the Civil War, the rookie quarterbacks, the 3 that had a chance to play in Week 1. We'll get his thoughts on that. Alex Brink in 20 minutes. Justin Myers, we got to ask him if he's going down to Civil War.
Yeah, I'm curious.
If he's going to compromise his lifestyle and go to a game in Corvallis. I'm not sure if he is or not, but we'll find out. Justin Myers will stop by at 4:20. I think it's probably a good time, Dwight, to check his temperature to see how he feels about the Ducks 2 weeks in with 2 subpar performances.
Yes, I would think maybe he's keeping sharp objects out of his pocket right now. It's a difficult time for, I think, him
What is your
others.
predicted response from Justin Myers? Will he be optimistic or will he be pessimistic in regards to his football team?
Pessimistic.
You think so?
Yeah, I think a lot of hardcore fans are, because it's easier to expect the worst and then be surprised in the positive than to think it's all going to turn out rosy and have it not do that.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you only from the standpoint that I've never seen Justin be pessimistic about anything. He's always positive about everything. He was pessimistic about presenting the idea to his wife that you suggested to renew their vows to have their wedding day changed to after football season. That's the only time I've ever heard pessimism come out of his pie hole.
I gave him a good idea, and he rained on my parade.
Well, he wouldn't be the first husband I've heard take a good idea and not even present it to his wife because he knows it's going to get shut down.
He's afraid.
There's been a lot of great ideas from guys that never get presented because in fear of what the wife might say.
Yeah.
We've all been there before. All right, so Justin Myers at 4:20, and then Brooke Olzendam will join the show coming up at 5:20. The Blazers getting ready for the Rip City Rally where they're going to tour around the entire state. So Brooke will join us. We'll get a feel for how her summer's been, if she's had a chance to talk to any of the guys, what she's looking forward to the most with the upcoming season. Also, she is a Coug, and she's got thoughts on the expansion of the Pac-12 as well. And that's where we're going to start the show today. I guess we'll start with that, Godfather. It came out late last night, a surprise to many, but I have to say we've called this, and we've been talking about this on the show for a couple of months, that the lack of concern from Oregon State and Washington State followed up by the fact that they announced that they were not going to schedule any Mountain West games past this year. That led us to believe that they must know something that we don't, that they're on top of something, that they're going to break news on a deal. And we got that last night with the word that Boise State, Fresno State, Colorado State, and San Diego State would join the existing two schools, Oregon State and Washington State, to form a Pac-6, which, of course, more schools coming in the near future because they're going to have to get up to 8 teams in just over a year to maintain their FBS status. What was your reaction to the news when you saw it last night?
Well, I was excited for Oregon State and Washington State because I believe, Chad, given the circumstances, this is just about the best they could hope for. They have poached the 4 best brands in that conference away from the Mountain West. And I think it's given them an opportunity for TV money. Again, it's given them an opportunity to have a place for their other sports to play on a regular schedule with teams in the West. It's just a good thing all around. Now, is it the best thing to happen to them? No, I think there are better things. Sure, they could have sat around and waited for one of the big-time conferences to come knocking, but I don't think they could afford that, and I don't think it was going to happen, quite frankly.
Well, the problem is if they would have gotten the invite from the Big 12, it would have been on a reduced share. So you come in, you don't have a chance to make nearly as much money, and now at least you control the situation yourself because they can add schools, they'll add more schools, and then once they have more of a finished product, they can really go to market and see what their new conference is worth and what type of TV deal they can get. And the good thing is that won't be on a reduced share. They'll be able to get some regular dollars rolling in, which will put them, both schools, Washington State and Oregon State, in a better chance to succeed, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in so many ways. And I think, like for basketball, it's going to be a good thing for them in basketball. They're going to probably be able, one of those teams, and traditionally some of these teams have been pretty good in basketball. One of these teams is going to get into March Madness. That brings a lot of money into the conference that's split among the conference members.
And, of course, you still got Cal and Stanford sitting out there in the ACC.
Yeah. Oh, man. If they could somehow lure them, get them out of the ACC, Chad, now you're talking about a real conference.
Well, this might be the opportunity for the ACC to boot them out
right,
and send them back to the Pac-12 so that they can strengthen their relationship with Clemson and FSU.
That's what I was going to say, Chad. You need to explain that because I think a lot of people don't understand what's going on in the ACC right now, that battle that's spilled into the courtrooms. And
well, their 2 best brands, Clemson and FSU, who have the most power, they don't like the way that the conference is set up in terms of shares. They want more money because they know that their value as a school is much greater than some of the other scrubs in the conference. So one way you could do that is to allow Cal and Stanford to exit without punishing them with excessive fees. And then you can instantly increase the shares that you hand over to FSU and Clemson. Because if you're the ACC, you don't want FSU and Clemson out of the conference. You need those 2 schools because they're so big and dominant in terms of brand, in terms of what they bring to the TV, and also they're both strong football programs as well. So they need those 2 schools. This might be a good way for Stanford and Cal to exit. And I would imagine, based on geography, Stanford and Cal would appreciate a move back west to be a part of the Pac-12. That would be my guess there. So I think those 2 schools are an opportunity. It's just hard to believe if you look back now, the idiots who were running the Pac-12, and I mean real morons, turning down the $30 million per school offer from ESPN because they thought they were worth so much more. And then once ESPN balked at their idea, they were left with nothing. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, Oregon State and Washington State are left without a conference. That's very unfortunate. Obviously, getting into the Big 12 would have been huge for Washington State and Oregon State, but I do think that, like you said, with the circumstances being what they are, this is good. Yeah. You know, they've added schools, and we'll talk to Brink about this, but clearly, if those 4 schools that we just mentioned agreed to join, they wouldn't do so unless they had a pretty good idea who the other schools are going to be that's going to round out and fill out the conference. They would not be joining the Pac-12 to make it 6 if they didn't know for sure that there will soon be 8 and possibly more. My guess is they won't stop at 8, that they'll get to 10 or 12 or more, depending on what they're able to pull in. That would be my rough estimate there.
Yeah, I agree. There's no reason not to go to 10, except you're cutting 2 more people into that pie that you're sharing with the TV money. But I think it depends on what you have the opportunity to get. I think TV markets are of real concern here because adding these 4 schools has really helped them television-wise, and I think it's been talked about a lot, Chad, but there's ESPN sitting there with that direct-to-consumer product ready to go, and they probably need West Coast schools involved in that. And then you look at TNT, they're looking right down the barrel of losing sports properties that they might want to replace. So there's the opportunity for this new conference to come into some decent TV money.
Well, no, there's no question about it. And TNT has already gotten in just recently into the college football game.
Yeah.
So they're going to want more college football, and the Pac-12 could present that for sure. ESPN could have interest. I don't think they're going to have a problem finding a network where they can get some linear television but also get some streaming. It'll probably be a combo deal. I don't think it's going to be an issue. The one thing I know about football, people can't get enough of it. People want to consume it, and these networks are dying to get live programming, particularly football, college or NFL, on their networks because they know people will watch, which drives up the ad revenue. It's a win for everyone. Football's a monster.
Well, and live sports in general is a hedge against DVRs.
Yeah, because they know people are going to watch it live instead of recording it and watching it later. Matt Prem, in regards to who else could be added after the 4 that joined last night, he says the Pac-2 takes Cal, Stanford, and SMU from the ACC for a reduced exit fee. The ACC juices up the money rights for FSU and Clemson to make them happy, and the Pac-9 becomes a Pac-10 by adding North Texas as a travel partner for SMU. They can look into adding Memphis, Tulane, et cetera, to become the Pac-12. So you get Cal and Stanford. I don't think it's going to be too hard to get that number up to 12 if you so desire to get it up to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you look for if you were looking to add schools? Would it be TV market? Would it be their football program? What would you be looking for in regards to adding more schools to your conference?
Well, Chad, I think it's undoubtedly your biggest wish would be for a combination of both. Good TV market and a good football program, basically, and a good athletic department. I think, too, just for me, Chad, I like the idea of UNLV because the football program is really on the rise. It looks like they've got that straightened out finally after many years of trying. And then it's still UNLV. It's a destination that everybody wants to go to. And to get that town signed up where all the pro sports are just flocking in there, to get a college program signed up in there, I think would be a feather in their cap. I'd like to see that, number one.
All right, a couple other options. This is according to John Wilner, who's all over this story. He says Memphis, UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, UNLV, that's a school you would like, Tulane, Air Force, New Mexico. That's his list of schools.
Yeah. I'd hate to see him go too far east because I think it kind of defeats the purpose of what they're doing, bringing back a West Coast league.
That's true, but if you have some teams back east and you get a travel partner,
yeah,
I like the idea of UTSA and Texas State because you want to have games in Texas because you're recruiting in that state and you have a chance to bring some of your players back to that state as well. It's a pain in the ass for those schools because they got to travel west to get some of their games played. He says the Tigers would easily clear the competitive bar in football and men's basketball and bring the nation's number 51 media market. UTSA says the Roadrunners, great name by the way, make loads of sense on the plethora of fronts. They would provide the Pac-12 with the San Antonio media market number 31, a football-crazed state, the Central Time kickoff zone. UNLV, of the 8 Mountain West schools in danger of being left behind, UNLV has the greatest upside for the Pac-12. The football program's on the ascent. Men's basketball has a storied history, and the Las Vegas media market is number 40. He says for Tulane, the Greenway bring a first-rate academic reputation. The New Orleans market, number 50, an improved football program plus recruiting access to a talent-rich region. So
yeah,
there are plenty of options out there. We'll get more on this coming up next. Alex Brink, former Coug, and now with E-Force Football, E-Force Fitness joins us next. All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad as we get ready for another football weekend. It's awesome. And joining us right now is our college football and NFL insider, former Washington State quarterback, and now a radio analyst. And he's with eForce. It's Alex Brink, who's back on the show. Brink, you ready for another football weekend or what, brother?
Boys, we are knee-deep in it. It is football season. My wife asked me if I could maybe turn the football off for a little bit last week. And you know what I said? No way, Jose.
That's right, man. Not only do you have to watch ball yourself, but you got young kiddos to groom in the right ways of how to watch games and stuff, man. That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
But, hey, we got the news last night. This is pretty exciting. Dwight and I are excited about it. But what are your thoughts on the Pac-12 expanding, adding Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State to make a Pac-6, and now they'll look to at least 2 more schools in the near future?
I'm really excited. You know why I'm excited is that the Pac-12 finally made a move and are getting ahead of something, right? They're not being reactionary. And I think this is a pretty natural fit, both geographically. I think they get the 4 premier programs out of the Mountain West that all have very real brands, are very successful, not just in football, but when you talk about San Diego State and even Boise in basketball, right? And, I think that this is the start of something, okay? And when you look at all the options on the table for the Pac-2 for Oregon State and Washington State, there wasn't a lot there. There was the potential of, as the ACC blows up, you create kind of a bi-coastal conference, which essentially is this, right? Because the bi-coastal version was Stanford and Cal come back, and then you backfill with some of these top-tier Mountain West schools. So it's relatively the same. I think the hope, like the shot in the dark, was you land in the Big 12, right? You get into the Big 12 invite. The problem there is that you had no leverage. So that Brett Yormark, the chairman for the Big 12, he's not going to give you any money. It's going to be partial shares or even less than that. So this allows you to control your own destiny. You have high value. Look, Washington State on Fox last weekend against Texas Tech, over 1.2 million viewers in a late night time slot.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, right? So the brands carry weight. And then what you do is you go backfill with 2 more schools to get to 8. And you maybe even add some schools from down south into AAC to capture some different markets. I think it's high value.
Okay. I think there's going to be a lot of speculation on who the other 2 schools are going to be. And Alex, you can pick on what them on what their programs are now, their TV markets, whatever. Who do you see as the best 2 candidates to come into this conference?
Look, there's some hurdles there, but Cal and Stanford are coming back. It's going to happen. It has to, right? It made no sense for them to go to the ACC to begin with. They've expressed concern about travel and all the things. They really just have to get through the Florida State Clemson kind of legal hurdles and let that dissolve to some degree. But it's probably better for the ACC for Cal and Stanford to come back also, right? Because it's going to create better geography for their schools. They can reshare that money back into the pot probably for Clemson and Florida State if they stay, honestly. So I think here's the reality. Those 4 Mountain West schools do not make this move if there's not 2 schools already ready to go. And my guess is it's Stanford and Cal. The other options on the table that I think are good are, again, kind of that Southern AAC group, whether it's Tulane, UTSA, Memphis, schools like that honestly have great things in their own right, but you create some geographical challenges if you don't get Stanford and Cal back. But I think Stanford and Cal, and that's your 8 teams, and you go from there, I think it's a good start.
And Alex, there's really no reason actually to stop at 8, is there? You could go, you put Stanford and Cal, or you wait for Stanford and Cal and add a couple of those schools you just mentioned, and you go to 10, right? Yeah,
I think you go to 10 or 12, and you can kind of create a north-south style division again, because if you get UTSA, Tulane, Memphis, maybe even North Texas, who's really well funded, and you get down you got 4 schools down there plus San Diego, you create a kind of a southern version of it. And then, I think that makes sense. I also think there's a world, Dwight, where maybe smaller is better because it costs less, right? You don't have to share as much of the pie with everybody, and you have good brands and you have good media markets, and you go package that and sell it because the CW picking up Oregon State and Washington State proves that there is a market, like I've said from the beginning, for regional college football, and people will pay for it. And the value that the Pac has right now is that Pac-12, enterprises or Pac-12 net, whatever you want to call it, they have the ability to produce their own games. And so somebody is going to buy that asset and the games that come with it, bar none.
We're talking with Alex Brink here on the Rip City Drive. So overall, you think this is a very good outcome for Oregon State and Washington State?
I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, yes. I mean, obviously nobody's sitting here saying, boy, if you would have rewound 24 months, be like, oh, Washington State and Oregon State are playing, Fresno and Boise every year. Like, nobody would have wanted that. But in the context of how realignment's playing out, this is a win because, again, the Pac's moving first in the current state of affairs. Pac's moving first, getting ahead of things. They get 4 premier brand schools in that tier. And listen, here's the other really important thing to keep in mind. If you rebuild the Pac-12, you get in the conversation to get one of those automatic bids as a power conference. And regardless, this conference is going to have a bid in the college football playoff no matter what. And so you're playing for that college football playoff bid. And there's a potential, if you get enough teams in, you may have a 2-bid league with how good they are.
I got to ask you something else. I know you're busy preparing for a big game this weekend. How weird is it to prepare for the Apple Cup in September?
It's so strange on so many levels. I'm usually used to like heading into Thanksgiving, doing the interviews and getting asked the questions about my Apple Cup experiences and all the things and what's my favorite moment and all that. And it's like I'm doing it in September. It's like, it's very strange. It's very odd. The weather's very different. In general, it's different because you don't really have a great feel for the teams right now, right? Usually by the end of the year, you have a really good feel for these teams and you kind of at least have an idea of what to expect. This week, I don't know. I mean, I think I know based on the tape I've watched, but it's definitely a different situation.
How do they match up, the Cougs against the Huskies?
It's going to be a good game. I mean, Washington's had a ton of turnover, obviously, on the roster, coaching staff, the whole thing. They've got some talent. They've backfilled with, some pretty accomplished players. When you think about Will Rogers at quarterback, right? I mean, number 2 all-time in the SEC in pass yards, coming from Mississippi State. They get Jonah Coleman, the running back, coming with Jed Fish from Arizona. But, boy, they lost a lot of the receiver and tight end position, right? And so they're down there for sure. That offense has struggled at times the first 2 weeks. Defensively, they have some veterans, right? They get Steve Belichick, Bill Belichick's son, to come over from the Patriots and be the defensive coordinator, so you're going to get some wrinkles. So I think all those things, make it an interesting matchup. The Washington State defense has some holes, but they played better last week. So how do they match up with an offense that struggled at times? And then obviously the Washington State offense, frankly, has been lights out behind John Mateer. And what is Belichick going to do to combat his running ability, to combat the Cougs' speed on the outside? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good matchup for Washington State, but in the end, right, you got to play in Seattle, and it's always a challenge.
Alex, I wanted to ask you about Mateer. I've watched the first 2 games. I came away very impressed, and I know I'm trying not to overreact. 2 games, but what do you think of him and his long-term viability at quarterback?
I think it's smart when you say not to overreact because he's a young quarterback, right? He's going to make mistakes. He's going to have challenges, particularly throwing the football. Where you can get excited and overreact is in his running ability. You don't see athletes move at the quarterback position like he moves, other than about 1% of players, in all honesty. I mean, you watch him run the football. He is fast. He's elusive. He's strong. He's a running back. He's running back skills playing quarterback, but he also throws it really well. And so I think that's where I get excited. He's learning, right? He's going to learn how to execute throws, all those sort of things. He has great arm talent that you see pop up. But, this is going to be his biggest challenge for sure. And we're going to find out kind of, I think where he's at in his development. In the end, his legs are the wild card factor. And when a quarterback has the ability to run like that, it can always help you settle into a game, as you've seen these first couple of weeks. I'm excited for John Mateer. He's also a fantastic kid. I mean, just a real leader. Teammates, players, coaches, they all rave about his leadership ability and his ability to connect the locker room.
We're talking with Alex Brink, former Washington State quarterback, now with E-Force. And what do you think is the main reason as to why Oregon has failed to meet expectations through the first 2 weeks?
Wow. I mean, execution for sure. I mean, just like flat out, penalties, poor line play, offensive and defensive line. It's hard to tell early in the season, right? Because no team in week 1 and week 2 is going to be who they are at the end of the season. And all you can hope for as a coach is that you get through those first couple of weeks with W's in right, the win-loss column. And they did that, and it wasn't pretty. But they have some real concerns because areas of strength, what they were perceived areas of strength, through 2 weeks have been the weak links. And you wonder, and this is the challenge in the time, this time we're in, is when you start getting into the transfer portal and you start doing NIL and all these things, there's more dynamics at work, right? And so are you able to build the culture year in and year out when you're basically signing free agents and you're hoping they come in based on past experience and past production that they can repeat it? That's not always the case, right? And so college football is starting to experience that, right? Just because I get, the best receiver in the transfer portal does not mean that receiver will always be as productive as he was previously. That's just the reality. And so I think Dan Lanning and his staff are trying to figure out how to balance some of those things, and then they got to get the players to go execute on Saturdays.
So what follows is the question, can the Beavers beat them, and what do they have to do to win that game?
They can absolutely beat them, and there's no doubt about it. I think Oregon State is a very similar team to Boise State. I think maybe a little bit stronger at the quarterback position, maybe a little stronger kind of on special teams, but probably not the dynamic playmaker, obviously, that Ashton Jeanty, the running back for Boise, is. So there's some balance there. But look, Brent Bray has coached against Oregon, played against Oregon, got a good defensive scheme. He's going to know how to dial it up, and he's got 2 game plans now between Idaho and Boise, right, to work off of. In that regard, I think offensively, it's going to come down to a lot of what Oregon State's great at, right? If they can control the line of scrimmage, if they can run the football and play action pass, put a lot of pressure on that Oregon defense. And look, you're playing Reser, and I lived that rivalry for a long enough time to know that every time Oregon comes to Reser, look, the all bets are off. And so I think Oregon State has a very real chance to win that football game.
Hey, Alex, what was your thoughts on Northern Illinois going in and taking out Notre Dame?
Welcome to college football, right? Nothing's changed, it feels like, when it comes to the portal and NIL and all these things. Everybody thought the rich would get richer and the poor would get poorer, and the reality is that you still got to go line it up, and you gotta play on Saturdays. And I think what Northern Illinois showed is that if you got enough talent, right, and you got enough belief, and you hang around, and you're in games. These teams that have a lot of expectation and a lot of pressure and now a lot of money on the line, that gets you sometimes. And it felt like Notre Dame cracked, right, in the face of adversity, and Northern Illinois, to their credit, rose up to the occasion.
Alex, we saw 3 rookie quarterbacks debut. We saw Caleb, and we saw Jaden Daniels, and we saw Bo Nix. I'm curious what you thought in general about each one's debut and whether or not there are commonalities there.
Well, the commonality is that they all look like rookies, right?
Yeah.
And that's always, I've been on with you guys enough to know you guys have heard my soapbox. I don't think very rarely starting as a rookie leads to success in the NFL because there's so many things out of your control, and it's such a difficult task, no matter how talented you are. And I think all 3 of them are talented. I think Caleb Williams will end up being the best of the 3. And I've kind of said that from day one. But the other part about being a high draft pick at quarterback and starting early is your team's usually not that good, right? And so, I think the reality for, say, Bo Nix is that the Seattle Seahawks are a better team than the Denver Broncos, and they showed it. And that creates real challenges for at the quarterback position because you're so beholden on the guys around you. So they all look like rookies. They all had moments. In the end, they're all going to be judged off wins and losses. And no matter how you play, when you win, you get more confidence. And when you get more confidence, you play better. So that's what we got to track as we go along, is like whoever's finding ways to win ball games is going to end up creating a lot of confidence both in themselves and amongst their teammates and fan bases. And it makes it easier to play the position.
We're talking with our college football and NFL insider, Alex Brink, here on the Rip City Drive. You can speak to this as well as anyone. Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan, they have a unique way of being able to plug any type of running back into their offense and getting massive production. We saw it with the 49ers on Monday Night Football against the Jets with Jordan Mason, with no Christian McCaffrey. What is it about that offense and the way they scheme it to where they can get running backs that we've never heard of before get off?
Yeah, you speak to my experience. 2008 when I was drafted, Steve Slayton was in our draft class. Obviously a fantastic college football player at West Virginia, but he wasn't a shoo-in to be a great NFL back by any means. And rookie year, boom, 1,000-yard rusher, right? And then my second year, Arian Foster comes in as an undrafted free agent from Tennessee. It's like, well, we're not sure because we got Steve, and then all of a sudden Arian Foster is an all-pro. You know what I mean? And, they do it. And it's scheme, right? It's their – at the root level of it, they're kind of the premier zone running scheme in the NFL. One thing that always stood out to me is they're running zone run, but most of the time they have a fullback, and they teach the fullback, which is really cool. They teach the fullback to run like a running back. Find the hole, right? Find the hole, and then the first wrong colored shirt you see in that hole, hit them. And so then they teach the running back, follow that fullback because he's the one leading the way. And so I always thought that was great in two-back sets. You know, they were running zone, but they kind of had that lead blocker. And then in the one-back set, right, they do a great job of what they call wide zone. So they're stretching the defense sideline to sideline, and then they're trying to find these creases. And it's only evolved from there, right? People that follow football close, right, now all of a sudden they're tossing the ball back to the running back to run zone instead of handing it off because they want the ball in the running back's hands quicker. It's all these things. They think about the running game the way most people think about the passing game, with intricacies and changes and motions and formations and all these things. And it's all based in that zone running scheme, and that's why they're able to plug and play whoever they want at the backs.
Wow. Great answer. Appreciate that.
Okay, Alex, Sam Darnold played terrific in his opener with Minnesota, and I'm curious if you think, is that sustainable, and are we going to see this season become the sort of resurrection of Sam Darnold?
I believe that is the case. I am on the Sam Darnold train. I've been on the soapbox about him. When he came out of college, I thought what he did at USC was fantastic. He's got great mobility. He's got all the tools throwing the football wise. He's a really solid, he understands the game, great personality for it. He was in some really bad situations, right? He was in some really bad situations in Carolina and with the Jets. Just wasn't good. Yeah. And that's, again, goes back to my point about starting early in the NFL. When you're a high draft pick in bad situations, it's not conducive to success. And now he's playing in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell as the head coach and play caller, with some unbelievable weapons at the receiver position, a solid defense. He's got the tools, guys, and he has a chance to really do it. I thought he would have had a chance with the Niners, right? I think it was last year, and he never really kind of got his shot, and I think Minnesota's a great spot for him.
One more football question for you, Brink. How about Jim Harbaugh getting the Chargers out there in the field looking like Michigan in week 1 with 176 yards rushing, not asking Herbert to do too much?
Yeah, that's going to probably be the MO, right? That's what he wants to be. There's an interesting dynamic, too, where the NFL went so pass-heavy for so long. The natural evolution is to start to kind of lean back, right, into the running game. And Harbaugh, I think, is kind of getting ahead of that curve a little bit. And he wants to pound it. He wants to play good defense. He's got a quarterback that he knows can do it if he needs to, but has also shown that if it's all on him, it's not really a recipe for success. So I think the idea of leaning into the run game heavy, it makes a lot of sense.
All right, Brink, you've got a lot of things going on at eForce. Talk to me about your performance training.
Yeah, it's that time of year where, football players, especially fall sport athletes, are back playing. But for those that play winter and spring sports, there's opportunities to train and get better, thinking specifically strength, speed, power, injury prevention, quickness. We've got 2 locations, one in Milwaukee off of McLaughlin and one in Beaverton off of Allen Boulevard, where we have elite strength training coaches that can teach your athlete all they need to know about training, performance, lifting weights, running, and some great programs, all ages, anywhere from 10 years old all the way to 18. We got a back-to-school special going right now. You get 4 months of training for the cost of 3. So check out eforcesports.com and look on the performance tab, and you'll see that offer and come in for a free evaluation.
Well, Alex, we love you. Thanks for the education, my friend. Enjoy the game this weekend. Apple Cup in September, as bizarre as it is, it's going to be a good game, and now we'll wait and see what other teams are going to jump on board with the Pac-12.
It's going to be a fun weekend of football. That's right. Pac-12 is back from the dead, baby.
Well, you got to love Alex Brink. He's pretty excited, Godfather, on the additions that the Pac-12 was able to make.
Yeah, I think with good reason, too. Absolutely. I think we're excited, too.
Does he know something about Cal and Stanford? Because it sure sounded like he did.
I wondered the same thing, Chad. I think he's privy to info that we might not get.
All right, we'll come back and react to Alex Brink, and then we'll tell you something that's pretty cool going on at the Portland Art Museum starting this weekend. Well, I tell you what, Godfather, Paul McCartney is a beauty. And some of the music he did in the 80s with Stevie Wonder, like we're listening to here,
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, sensational.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, anyone he collaborates with, it's going to work.
Enormous talent.
I still love the story that he shared about Michael Jackson when MJ first reached out to him. Jackson had gotten his digits and placed a phone call. And as Paul said, he gave me a ring, and I answered the phone. I said, hello. He goes, hey, Paul, it's Mike. And, of course, Paul thought it was a joke, right?
Yeah.
Someone was putting him on, so he hung up, and
Oh, God.
Michael Jackson called back, hey, Paul. And Jackson wanted to ask him one simple question. He didn't ask if he wanted to get together to make some music or write songs. He said, would you like to make some hits? And Paul said that just stuck with him, that the confidence, hey, I want to get together with you to make some hits. And Paul's like, that sounds pretty good. So they got together, and then boom, before you know it, say. That's how easy it was for those two.
What a no-brainer. Of course they're going to make hits. What else would they make?
Yeah. Unfortunately for Paul, throughout the course of their relationship, he also shared some of the business side of music with Mike, that he needed to get into the publishing. And before you know it, Mike's putting a bid on the Beatles catalog and swoops in and blindsides McCartney. And that pretty much ended that relationship.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having that Beatles catalog.
Whew.
My goodness.
That was kind of dirty pool, I thought.
Yeah. We'll get to the Paul McCartney story here in just a moment. There's something cool going on at the Portland Art Museum. But going back to Alex Brink's discussion, I mean, he's excited about the expansion, but Cal and Stanford, John Wilner, and I think a lot of people who look at the situation as is right now, logically, they just don't see how Cal and Stanford can afford to get out of their deal with the ACC because they're locked in until 2036. So the exit fees would be very steep. But the caveat here is the ACC may want to boot them out of the conference anyways, right?
Yeah.
They may allow them to exit with very little penalty because what they're ultimately trying to do and what they care most about is finding a way to get on the same page with Florida State and Clemson, the two most important brands in the conference with the two best football programs and also a strong TV draw. Those are two massive college football programs. And for Cal and Stanford, if they exit the conference, the ACC can then in turn increase the share given out to Clemson and Florida State.
Yeah.
That's a win for the conference. And in return, they could let Stanford and Cal exit with small penalty to be able to make it back to a conference that would be better suited for them, especially geographically, being able to travel and play the games you need to play and be matched up with schools who fit more in your region.
Yeah, a lot of people out here have said all along, I don't know how Cal and Stanford are going to be able to handle those trips back east to play those schools. And, you know, I think the reverse side of that is those schools in the east have to come out here too.
Yeah.
And that's very inconvenient when you're talking about not just football, but an entire athletic program having to make all those trips.
Yeah, football is irrelevant because you play once a week over the course of just a few months. So you make one flight, play the game, and you fly back.
Right.
That's not the problem. The other
Yeah.
problem are the sports where you got to play, multiple games each week throughout the course of the season. And if you're in conference play and you're flying back and forth across the country, that's hard on the students because they're away from school for an extended period of time. There's more cost involved in that type of travel. It's exhausting on your entire staff. I mean, it's a major problem. So,
Very expensive too.
yes. But beneficial to Cal and Stanford potentially to be able to make the return. And there are people out there, in addition to Brink, who have suggested that the next two schools in could, in fact, be Cal and Stanford. That'd be great. That would be a major win, I think, for Oregon State and Washington State.
Be perfect.
And you get the Bay Area market, too.
Yeah.
Which has access to a ton of people. Like 9 million people in terms of market if you look at the Bay Area, the entire area.
Yeah, and university presidents could then take pride in two of the top academic institutions in the country rejoining their conference, which to the presidents is still a big deal.
If you look back to the day when we got the word that Washington State and Oregon State were left behind and the other schools journeyed out to their new conferences, it looked really bleak in that moment. Yeah. But where we're sitting today, Oregon State and Washington State, they won the court case. They got the money left over from the conference, which allowed them to have the resources to survive this year and next, and then continue to work and try to figure out what the next step would be. And here we are now with the news that 4 schools are going to join the Pac-2. It's now a Pac-6. More schools are to come. It's a much better situation today. I feel good for Oregon State and Washington State. It's nice.
Yeah, that's kind of what you do in life. You make the best out of a bad situation, and I think they've done that.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. When we come back, we'll tell you what's going on at the Portland Art Museum. It involves Paul McCartney, and I'm glad it's going on for an extended period of time because it's something I want to check out. Thursday Night Football, big game, huge game, week 2. It's too bad the NFL put these two teams on a Thursday night because it could be a crappy game in terms of how they play it, especially on offense, and a big opportunity for both teams early in the season. And then we'll take a look at the potential TV deal. John Wilner did a good job with the numbers on, what exactly Oregon State and Washington State could be in store for in terms of TV money.
Yeah. And it looks pretty good given the circumstances.
Yeah, Cal and Stanford, it could get even better. So we'll discuss that next. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Justin Myers at 4:20, and the sweet Brooke Olzendam going to stop by and talk some hoop at 5:20. All right, it's now 4 o'clock. Chad here. What's up, my friends? We start with college football. The Pac-12 is expanding. Announced last night that Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State would join the conference. They'll need to add 2 more schools by the end of next year to keep their FBS status. Civil War coming up Saturday, kickoff at 12:30 from Research Stadium. Pregame at 10:30. It'll be on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KEX. Justin Myers going to stop by the show to talk the Ducks and Beavs at 4:20. We got some action coming up at 4:30. 2-0 Arizona State plays at 2-0 Texas State. Kickoff at 4:30. ESPN, ASU favored by 2.5. Thursday Night Football, AFC East matchup. The Bills at the Dolphins. Josh Allen, 10-2 against the Dolphins. Has never lost on a Thursday. Miami favored by 2.5. Kickoff on Prime Video at 5:15. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now. Brooke Olzendam going to join the show at 5:20. All right, one quick note, and I think this is pretty cool, Godfather. We were just talking about Paul McCartney. The Paul McCartney photographs, 1963 to 1964, Eyes of the Storm. It's an exhibition that's going to open up at the Portland Art Museum coming up on Saturday. It will run all the way through the new year till January 19th. And the pictures are focused in during that meteoric rise into international stardom for the Beatles when they were white hot.
Beatlemania.
Yes. And so this is one of those displays that I think I would like to go check out, to go see some of the pictures that were done, especially of Paul and the rest of the band when they were in their younger years. And I'm sure just like any other band that becomes an instant phenomenon, it was probably one of those times they look back on and they still can't believe how crazy it got, especially when they came to America. And they weren't going to come over until they had a #1 record here. They did. They came over, and the rest is history. My mom and dad even told me that they remember when the Beatles came over and how crazy it was.
Of course.
They said it was awesome. They'd
And then
never seen
just-
anything like it.
Well, and then their appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show. America was glued to those shows at that time. They, of course, big hit. Girls in the audience screaming like crazy. It was an amazing time. I am just shocked that I hadn't heard about this until today.
I know.
And I kind of keep track of these things that are going on in town.
Do you and Nancy like to go and check out art displays?
We go to the art museum occasionally when it's something that we like. I think I told you earlier, I like dropping into the art museum once in a while. It makes me feel more cultured.
The only time I've been to the Portland Art Museum, my very first bodybuilding show was at the Portland Art Museum.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a form of art, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, in one way or another. But that's what I remember about the Portland Art Museum. That was my first trip there.
The one I remember the most is there was a touring exhibit of Van Gogh paintings, and I remember going to that.
How was that?
Oh, it was amazing to see those paintings in person. And they had most of his good stuff.
All right, so the let's see here. Paul McCartney photographs 1963 through 1964, Eyes of the Storm. The exhibition will open up at the Portland Art Museum this Saturday, September 14th. It will run through January up until the 19th. I'm happy. I thought it was just going to be a weekend deal.
Yeah.
But it's going to continue on for a few months, which is good. That'll give us time to go check it out.
Everybody has a chance to see it. And you think Taylor Swift is big right now? I think the Beatles were bigger in those days.
If you want to entertain yourself, just pull up how many #1 hits the Beatles had and then review that list.
They turned out albums with almost every song being #1 at some point.
Yeah, they're truly remarkable. There's no question about it. All right, football. Let's start with Thursday Night Football tonight. AFC East battle with the Dolphins and Bills down in South Beach. I am frustrated with the NFL that they took this matchup and put it on Thursday night. I know why they did it, because it's going to be a great draw on Prime Video.
Yeah.
I don't like this type of matchup being placed on a Thursday this early in the season, because it's such an important game. and you put both teams at a disadvantage coming off of week one, short rest, and, of course, the defense is ahead of the offense. And these are two teams with great quarterback play, great star players on offense, and we're not going to be able to see the best of the best, I'm afraid, because of the situation they're put in. So that frustrates me. Also, you want these two teams at their best because this is one of those games on the schedule that you look at, and you know that whoever wins this game or loses this game, it's going to have tremendous impact at the end of the year when you're looking at the division standings and the tiebreakers that are there. So that part is a bit frustrating. But this is an important game, and I think it's more important for Miami. They've got to find a way to solve the Josh Allen riddle. Yeah. You pointed this out to me earlier. He's never lost on a Thursday, but the Dolphins are one of those teams that he has great success against. He is 10-2 in 12 regular season games against the Dolphins, including last year where he got the sweep and the division crown based on his success against Miami. The Dolphins are without their best nickel corner, which is critical when you're taking on Miami because of their speed, especially at receiver. Also out without their best linebacker. So they've got some injury issues. It's like if the Dolphins don't find a way to get it done tonight, I don't know if they're ever going to beat Josh Allen and the Bills. It's a critical game for them. You know, Buffalo, even if they lose tonight, a road division game, they're going to be fine moving forward. But for Miami, when you get Buffalo at home, they've got to find a way to get over on Josh Allen tonight so they can put themselves in a position in that crowded AFC East to have some tie breaks go their way so they can have a shot at the crown.
Yeah, they have to win the home game because we know they're going to have a terrible time winning up in Buffalo because they always do. The weather is a problem for them. I think, too, I'm totally with you on one thing. It's too early in the season for a division game that matters so much to be played. I don't think either team is anywhere close to its peak efficiency right now. It's just too early. No. They need a couple more games, especially when you look at the situation. Now, let's face it. The exhibition season is virtually useless other than deciding who to cut and who to keep on your team. Play the rookies, play the free agents, and see who sticks. Other than that, I mean, these teams aren't ready for big regular season games yet, and we're not going to see the best of either one. That's too bad.
I think the other thing the Dolphins are trying to show is we know they've got great skill position players. Tua had a big season last year. Mm-hmm. They had the come-from-behind win last week against Jacksonville. They can score points. They're trying to show that they can be a more physically stout team and compete where it matters most at the line of scrimmage and be able to play defense. So I want to see how they physically respond to the matchup tonight against Buffalo. And what happened in that meeting at the end of last year down in Miami is Miami jumped out early, but Buffalo with their physical play just slowly started to eat away, got a couple of big special team plays, and before you know it, they're on top. And, Josh Allen got banged up a little bit in week one. They need to put some pressure on him and make life tough on him, or it's going to be the same result. But I like this matchup. I like Miami because I like their coach, and I like Tua because I think he's a good dude, and I like the way he operates. And Tyreek Hill is just as fast as you can find in a football uniform. So there's a lot of things to like about Miami because they're easy to watch. But until they start winning some tough games, it's hard for me to take them seriously in terms of being a legitimate AFC contender. And we saw what happened in the playoffs last year. Yeah. You blow the game at home to Buffalo. You wind up as a wild card. You're on the road at Kansas City in the cold weather.
Good
luck. They folded like a cheap suit. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
They didn't have a chance. When I saw the weather, it's like they got no chance out there. Warm weather team in the cold against Patrick Mahomes, no way. And they couldn't get it done. So you got to win games like this if you want to put yourself in a better position to be playing a home game come postseason time so you're not on the road early on in the wild card round against the Chiefs. It's pretty simple.
I kind of think Miami will win, Chad, almost because they have to. And my old gambling mentor used to tell me it's always the teams that need it the most that have the best chance to win. And I think Miami needs this game bad. They really need this game. And I think they'll probably figure out a way to win it. It's supposed to be high humidity tonight. I think it rained part of the day. The humidity will go up. And then you have that situation where the visiting team is always standing in the late afternoon and evening facing the sun as it sets. And that makes it even tougher in the heat. So we'll see.
Well, in my gambling life a long time ago, the idea that you wager on a team because they're due or they have to win that doesn't always go my way, at least in my experience. Sometimes there are teams that just match up better with other teams. I think this is a bad matchup for Miami. I'm going to be pulling for them tonight. I'd like to see them get over and get the job done. And I think Mike McDaniel's a smart coach, and I think he knows how to scheme it well. So we'll see how things shake out. I don't know. Again, it's hard for me to get a read on a lot of these teams early in the season.
It's too soon. We don't have anything to go on, really.
The only team I have a feel for is Kansas City.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because they got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid. They're good. They're really good.
You feel like you have a pretty good read on San Francisco, too?
I do. They run the football at will.
Yeah, no
Brock
matter who's
Purdy is
carrying
very
it.
accurate, and they don't make a lot of mistakes. And they're defensively, they're just talented on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, so those two teams, Kansas City, San Francisco. Oh, I have a pretty good feel for Baltimore, too, because I know how they're going to play. Now, I think what we saw in week 1 with the Chargers is the blueprint you're going to see moving forward with them. They're going to run the football, and they're not going to ask Herbert to try and win every game for them. I just don't know if they have the talent to continue to keep up that type of pace and dominance on the ground. We'll see how things shake out. It may take Harbaugh another offseason to continue to tinker with the roster to get more of the guys in there that he wants. But you're right. Baltimore, San Francisco, Kansas City, those are the three teams where week to week I'm pretty certain I know what I'm going to get. It doesn't mean they're going to win every game, but I know what type of team they are.
Yeah, nobody's winning every game.
No, the scary part about the Chiefs now is that the receiving core looks a lot better than it did last year. And that's scary because they can still run the football a little bit with Pacheco. Mahomes makes good decisions. They got more speed at wideout. It's pretty scary when you think about what they can do to you.
When you add a guy like Worthy, with his speed, it changes a lot. And they're not going to throw to him a lot, but they're going to use him a lot just to stretch the field because you can't ignore his speed.
All right, I want to ask you about potential dollars that Oregon State and Washington State could be looking at with this new Pac-12 that they're forming right now with the addition of 4 schools last night, and more schools are coming. Bob Thompson put this out. He says the Pac-12 jumps to the first in line on the collegiate TV deal front. For a number of reasons, their games will be of value to outlets. ESPN might want more West Coast games for launch of the DTC product. TNT needs content. Fox and CBS split the current Mountain West Conference package. Let the dance begin. Now, John Wilner did some numbers on this. The current payout for the Mountain West schools in their current TV deal that runs through 2026, which is interesting. Their TV deal ends right when the newly formed Pac-12 will begin. That means you could see more schools from the Mountain West come over. Their payout's about $5 million per school. Now, clearly, Oregon State and Washington State have more value than any of the Mountain West schools, and they just poached the 4 best brands out of the conference, right? Out of the Mountain West. So what Wilner is suggesting is at least a 50% jump in that number, 50% more. So you'd be looking at somewhere around close to $10 million per school. But
I think it's going to be bigger than that, Chad, given the inflation factor with what the other rights fees have been. Everything seems to be taking a jump now because everybody wants this product. They can set up a bit of an auction here. They can get networks competing against each other. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up somewhere between 15 and 20 million, which sounds like crazy given what the Mountain West got last year. But this is a whole different story. Now, if they land Stanford and Cal, if that somehow happens,
you get $20 million per.
They're going to get 20. Yeah.
And they offer up that late night slot, the 7:30 kickoff time, which is attractive to networks.
Yeah.
And these networks are looking to fill some of their streaming content as well.
Yeah, Thompson said it right. They're kind of at the head of the line now because everybody else already has their deal. And TV networks want more. They want more.
That's true. And I think the way Ross Dellinger from Yahoo put it is that the Pac-12 now wants to be the best of the rest.
Yeah.
So you've got your power conferences, but all of a sudden this newly formed Pac-12 can step up, be the best of the rest.
Right. Better than Big 12, better than ACC.
Interesting. We'll see how things shake out. We'll talk with Justin Myers. We'll get his thoughts on the expansion, but more importantly, focusing on the Civil War. And where's he at after 2 weeks of watching the Ducks play with subpar performances? That's coming up next. Justin Myers, host of Rip City Mornings, joining us here on the Rip City Drive. All right, he is host of Rip City Mornings and a great friend of the program, and he's back on. It is Justin Myers. Justin, you realize that your team, the Steelers, are taking on my team, the Broncos, this weekend. We are at odds ends, and I'm going to be at the game, my friend.
You're going to be there? You're going to be in the stands?
Yes, sir.
Is it Invesco Field at Mile High? Is that what they call it now?
I think it's in Power Field at Mile High.
Power Field.
How about it's just Mile High Stadium?
Exactly. Yeah, that's going to be, if you like punts and incomplete passes, you're going to love it. It's going to be a great game for punts.
Yeah, defense, punts, incomplete passes. It's going to be maddening. And unfortunately, no Russ. It looks like Justin Fields is going to get the start.
Yeah, Russ. By the way, how about Russell Wilson inactive week 1, going to be inactive week 2 again, still suiting up with his shoulder pads on the sideline because you know what? He's always in the game. That guy's always in the game, you know?
I have no explanation for why he was wearing his full gear when he was ruled out of the game.
He was inactive. It was illegal for him to play, yet some poor equipment manager had to grab his shoulder pads and take them to Atlanta. Poor guy is like, Russ, yeah, you're inactive. You can't play. Yeah, I still need you to bring my shoulder pads to Atlanta.
He's a football player.
Put a hoodie on and stand on the sideline. You're inactive.
I mean, that's no different than you and I wearing headphones on a day where we're off.
Exactly. I show up to like dinner with my wife, and yet I bring the remote gear with the mobile headset. Yeah, that's just because you know what? We're always on. You never know when we might have to broadcast.
Oh my goodness.
All right, we're 2 weeks in the season after 2 rather disappointing games by your Ducks. Where are you now heading into the Civil War?
Oh boy, not quite to panic mode yet, Dwight, but not in easy breezy mode. I'll tell you that right now. I think we might have to float out that dreaded ugly word, overrated. Were they overrated? Is that what happened here? Because yeah, they do not look like a top 3 team. Heck, they don't look like a top 10 team. I think it's a benefit that they're still in the top 10, but I don't think that's accurate. If you watch the rest of the teams in college football, they don't look anything like that. When you have 2 games as close as they were at home, that's the other thing. I know I talked to Chad earlier in the week. Dwight, minus 54 is Oregon against the spread this year. Minus 54 is where they're at home against an FCS opponent and, well, I guess a Pac-12 team in Boise State. So, I mean, I guess that close game feels better because, you know, it's an old Pac-12 foe in Boise State that they were taking on. But, yeah, it is this was not the team we were expecting. This was not the team that Oregon fans thought was going to be running out on the field. And I think, to me, I heard Kirk Herbstreit talk about it. I think he was on McAfee's show either earlier this morning or yesterday. And I agree with him. They don't look like they have the same fire. Now, we can talk about the offensive line. We can talk about, you know, Dylan Gabriel taking some time. But they just, in those first 2 games, lining up against teams that do not have better athletes, do not have better players. Usually good teams, elite teams, smash those teams and take away their will. And they don't have that same fire that they seem to have had the last couple of years.
Do you think the offensive line is the cause of all of their issues on that side of the ball?
I think it's a good start, and I think the problem is they can't run the ball effectively, right? And they can't keep Gabriel from getting sacked. And look, I think a lot of this is Bo Nix was special. This is the hardest thing I think for Oregon fans to kind of get over is so many people are hung up on the last year of Bo Nix at Auburn. And people forget that this kid, well, not a kid anymore, he's a starting quarterback of the Broncos, but Bo Nix in high school was one of the highest recruited players in all of America. He was a legit 5-star player. He was a true freshman starter at Auburn. And then he had 2 All-American years at Oregon, including one where he was a half of football away from maybe potentially winning the Heisman. And I think Dylan Gabriel's a good quarterback. But when you look at the difference in the 2, I mean, Bo Nix was just special, and he got the ball out fast. I think he avoided a lot of sacks with his athleticism, with his quick decisions, and Gabriel's not quite there yet. And, yeah, when you piecework and patchwork together an offensive line, both through recruiting and through the transfer portal and dealing with injuries and guys are in different spots, it's not going to look like it is running on all cylinders. But to me, I think the bigger problem is usually a team like in the top 10 or in the top 5, like Oregon wanted to be, guys, they were supposed to have all this depth, right? I saw, article after article, and I saw the hype videos that Oregon was putting out about strength and speed and depth and the depth that they have. Well, you can't have one guard go down and all of a sudden your offensive line gives up 7 sacks in 2 games. That's not depth.
All right, I need to know this now, Justin. I've always believed when you go out and recruit from around the country, the players you bring in might be really good, but when it comes to a rivalry game like the Civil War, they might not understand how much the other guys care about this game. Do you have a feeling for how much the Ducks care about this game?
Yeah, I think the one thing that Oregon's got going, Dwight, is that's still a coaching staff that 2 years ago got it shoved right down their throat.
Yeah.
17 straight runs at Reser Stadium in a construction zone and in a Ben Gulbranson game where they couldn't trust him to pass, and they shoved it right down their throat. So I think that kind of comes from the coaches down. And you're right. You bring in a lot of out-of-state kids and to understand about the history and the importance of the rivalry. And now you play it in September and it's out of conference and the stakes aren't right there in front of you, because how many years did this game have either a conference title on the line, a chance to go to the Pac-12 title game on the line, or a significant bowl game on the line, as opposed to Pride? Like, for the last 15 years, you had real legitimate stakes. Now it's Oregon doesn't want their whole season to fall apart, and Oregon State can get a significant win, but they still have, a full slate ahead. So the stakes aren't exactly there. And I think it's on the coaching staff. And for Oregon, I still think there is that ugly, ugly taste in their mouth of what happened 2 years ago at Reser when they just got out-physicaled, out-manned, and out-bullied at Reser Stadium.
Are you going to the game?
No, I'm in the backyard. I'm partying in the backyard, boys. I know. Well, Chad, you're gonna be on your way to Denver. Dwight, you're invited. I'm making wings. So party in the backyard. Actually, before I went on the air, went and picked up a bunch of party supplies from Costco. Got a little judgment from the Costco receipt checker.
What?
Yeah, because my friends like to party, guys, and so I bought a pretty good amount of booze. And so as I'm going out, they go, "Oh, did you get enough there?" I'm like, "Easy there, receipt checker guy. I'm throwing a party."
There's nothing I hate more than that. You know what I don't need when I go to the store is comments on any items I'm buying or anything on the receipt. It's like, please keep your mouth shut. I don't know you. You don't know me. Stop asking me about my products.
Also, it's Costco. You can't leave there without 147 of something. It's like, you're going to look at me because I, stock in the fridge, full of drinks for the party. It's like, oh, are you sure you got enough there? It's like, pipe down, receipt guy.
How bad would a loss be for Dan Lanning in this one?
Devastating. This one's devastating, right? Because a couple of reasons. One, if you play Idaho to 10 points, Boise State to 3, and lose to Oregon State, that's out of the gate. You haven't played a Big Ten team yet. You still have Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio State still on the schedule. So that, and the other part of this is, you can try to explain away the Idaho game by saying, you know what, maybe they were a little too big for their britches. Maybe they were just overlooking an FCS opponent. And you could even maybe explain away the Boise game in that, Boise might be a good team. They might win the Mountain West, and Genty is a legit Heisman Trophy candidate right now. But you go 3 games in a row where you are not living up to expectations. They're favored by 16. If you lose this game again, then all of a sudden it's not a them problem, it's a you problem. And you have things that probably aren't going to be fixed. And then on top of that, there's the whole part of you left Oregon State high and dry because you thought you were better than them. It's just the flat out truth. The Oregon and Washington left the Cougs and the Beavs high and dry. They were not interested in building the Pac-12, which, as we now see with the news, was entirely possible. That if they would have stuck around, the Northwest schools could have rebuilt the Pac-12. Washington and Oregon took off. And so if you have the optics of that and this news this week of the Pac-12 expanding, and then Oregon State gets a win against the snooty, think you're better than me, rich kids at Oregon. I mean, yeah, that's devastating. All that.
All right, I got two things. First of all, I wanted to tell you, I wanted to ask you actually if it gives you any comfort to know that I picked Oregon to win by about 20. I think this is the week they break out. You feel better about that, don't you? Now that you've heard that.
I feel better you saying it, Dwight, than Chad, because Chad last week said Oregon was going to roll Boise, and boy, oh boy, did he fumble that pick. So I guess if I'm going to pick a Rip City Drive guy to make me feel better, yes, Godfather, it shall be you.
Yeah, well, you're running out of guys to pick, too. If I'm not right this week, you're in real trouble.
That current line is at 17. How would you bet the game?
I wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole. To be perfectly honest, 17 is too much delay for Oregon. They've shown no killer instinct, and there's no way I'm betting on the Beavs because I'm a big fat homer. But I thought at 14, I was like, all right, that feels about right. A 2-touchdown game on the road, rivalry, the way Oregon's played. The fact that it's gone up to 17, 2 touchdowns is a lot for a team that has not shown anything in 2 weeks that they have the ability to put it on them. Now, hopefully they snap out of it, and this is that breakout game, and it's the wake-up game, but I wouldn't touch that line for anything.
Okay, the Beavers have had a lot of luck running the ball, as we all know. How does Oregon look to you in regard to matching up with that and being able to stop that?
I mean, that's going to be the tough part about it is you have did I lose you guys?
No.
Oh, there you go. Okay, sorry. I thought I lost you. I got new headphones. They're very nice. They're very fancy, but the technology, I'm not a technology
Have you started
guy.
partying early? You've been hitting the booze?
Exactly. 4:30 on a Thursday, baby. This is how we go. No, stop in the run. Like, you go back to that game against Idaho, right? They had one drive against Oregon's defense. They ran for 47 yards. Like, Oregon did what you were supposed to do against a team like Idaho from that perspective. They scored a couple of points off of an incredibly bad decision by Dan Lanning to go for it his own 35, and then they scored on a trick play. So you've got that bit of evidence. It all comes down to, Dwight, is Ginty a legit first running back off the board in the NFL draft next year, going to be in New York, Heisman candidate, or is he just really good and Oregon still has some holes to fill on the defensive side? I think it's the first as opposed to the second. So I think with the Oregon's ability to stop the run, I like it. I like what they did against Idaho. I just think they ran up against a dude that's really, really good. And for the most part, kind of kept him somewhat contained until he got one step and boom, 70-yard touchdown run. And then boom, 42 yards. Like, he busted off half of his yards on 2 runs. But Oregon State's going to run the ball. They're not going to stop running the ball. I think they've got they're double runs to pass in the offense this year. And you better stay disciplined and you better stay focused because they're not going to stop running the ball.
We're talking to Justin Myers. He's host of Rip City Mornings here on 620 Rip City Radio. What went to your dome last night when you got word that the Pac-12 was expanding by 4 schools?
It was interesting because it's funny how you look back now and go, oh, now it all makes sense. Because we all kind of wondered, what were the Cougs and the Beavs doing 10 days ago or 12 days ago when that September 1st deadline came down and they didn't re-up a deal with the Mountain West? And it's like, is the Mountain West telling them thanks but no thanks? Or are they going independent? And it turns out, oh, no, they're stealing half the Mountain West. That's why they didn't schedule anything in 2025, because they were pillaging half the conference. I mean, for the reality of those 2 programs, for Oregon State and Washington State, I think it's a good move, because if you look ahead into the crystal ball of college football future, they're not staying at 12 teams in this playoff, right? It's going to go to 14, and I think likely it's going to end somewhere around 16. So there's going to be more and more places for teams to go, and I think that in the future, there isn't going to be this hard and fast line of Power 4 and Group of 5. I think the Big Ten and the SEC are always going to be up top. And then I think you're going to see, kind of like we see in basketball, kind of a mid-major form in college football. And I think that's the best place for Oregon State and Washington State, frankly. You're not going to be a power conference. Like, the idea that the new Pac-10 that is the Cougs and the Beavs and some Mountain West schools, and maybe they go out and snag Memphis, maybe they go out and snag Tulane. you're still not going to be a power conference, and good luck getting the SEC or the Big Ten to give up any spots for your automatic berth. But what you can be is kind of a mid-major. You can be better than the MAC. You can be better than Conference USA. You can be better than the Sun Belt, but not quite the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12. And I think that's a good place. You can make some money. You can get revenue in. And I think that's the other part of it that was smart was the Big 12, what I had heard, and it might be complete baloney from the internet, was that the Big 12 was somewhat interested in Oregon State and Washington State, but they were going to have to pay an entry fee and essentially give up the Pac-12 network that they won in the lawsuit. And this way they get to keep the Pac-12 network, which is now Pac-12 Enterprises, that is making all the money on the CW games and is actually for once kind of turning a profit. So the fact that they get to keep the network, they get to essentially control the conference now and create the college football mid-major, I think it's a smart move.
Justin, they need to add 2 more teams. Who do you think? Yeah. Who do you think that's going to be?
So I know you guys have been talking about Cal and Stanford. Here's where I worry. And again, I got no sources, guys. I'm just talking out of my backside. But you remember when the Pac-10 back in the late 2000s was talking about expansion, and they would ultimately bring in Colorado and Utah. And at that time, the best football program in the country that wasn't in a power conference was Boise State. And all we ever heard was Boise's never going to get into the Pac-10 because of academics. They don't meet the academic requirements. And same with Fresno State. I don't know about Colorado State, but there was all these academic requirements. That was coming from 2 places, USC and Stanford. Those were the 2 places. Maybe a smidge of Oregon and Washington, but it was mostly coming from USC and Stanford. So I have a hard time believing that Stanford and Cal in tow would all of a sudden take a 180 and say, yeah, we'll play in a conference with Boise and Fresno, just from a snooty academic Dean Wormer perspective. So that's why I think that's a bit of a pipe dream. I think UNLV is right there. I mean, the Mountain West is going to fall like dominoes. Vegas, they play in a real stadium. You can schedule games in Vegas. So I think UNLV is there. And I think Tulane and Memphis are kind of, from a football perspective, the best of the rest of teams that are either on the Mississippi or on this side of the Mississippi River. So those are the schools that I think they're probably going to be heading after.
All right. Based on everything you've told us on the program today, I'm concerned about your well-being for the party on Saturday. So pace yourself. Pace yourself.
If there's anything I have learned in my many years, Chad, is that first off, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. But you also can't drink all day if you don't pace yourself. And just like in working out, just like in dieting, the key is moderation and the key is pace. Now, boys, if this is a game in the third quarter, I make no guarantees. It might the Myers backyard might be off the rails if this turns into a ball game in the third quarter.
How much would your wife enjoy an Oregon State victory on Saturday?
She's gonna be sweating the Huskies and the Cougs at the exact same time.
Oh, that's right.
So yeah, so there's gonna be a fight over. Luckily, got the YouTube TV, got the dual screen if we need to go to it. But yeah, she's gonna be sweating the Huskies. Just 4.5 point favorites at Lumen Field. That's a tight point spread.
Yeah,
no question about it. All right, brother, we appreciate it, man. Justin Myers, host of Rip City Mornings. What do you got coming up on the show tomorrow? Fancy Coffee Friday.
It is Fancy Coffee Friday. Joel Gunderson from Scoop Duck's going to join us. My good buddy Steve Tander from down in Eugene's going to join us. Oh, Dwight, yeah. Monday we got WWE coming in studio.
Who do you have?
Gunther. We got Gunther.
Oh, he's like the best.
Coming in studio. He just went after Bret the Hitman Hart the other day. I saw.
He did, and
yeah.
I'm telling you, he's really good. He's really good. You couldn't have gotten a better guy.
And one more thing, real quick, Chad, where am I supposed to bring my gently used balls in 2 weeks? Where do I bring my gently used balls?
Just bring them to me. I'll drop them in the hot tub for you.
Show me your balls. Don't bring them to me. I want no part of them. Show me your gently used balls.
You guys are the best.
All right, later. There you go. I've been dying to do that all week. Thank you, Shacker. All right, big thanks to Justin Myers. We'll come back, and the 49ers, they need to proceed with caution. And we'll explain, and then we'll hear from Alex Smith talking a little Brock Purdy. The Rip City Drive is bringing the show to the Haven Spa Pool and Hearth in Clackamas Friday, September 27th from 3 to 6. Join Dwight and Chad as they broadcast live and collect new and gently used sports balls for the Boys and Girls Club of the Portland metro area. Get more details on the events page at ripcityradio.com.
You're listening to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
Yeah, Michael Shacker just asked me, hey, did the Denver Broncos ever have a theme song? I said no. He goes, what a crappy organization.
Yeah, that's the measure of a good organization, whether they have a theme song or not.
Yeah, this song makes my skin crawl, if we're just being honest. The best theme song I've ever heard for an NFL team was the San Diego Superchargers.
That's a tough one to beat.
And then the Rams, what is theirs? Ram It?
Oh.
I think the Rams have one. I think Anthony Newman was a part of that as well back in the 80s. All right, let's start with this. We'll get to the 49ers. Well, we'll talk about Christian McCaffrey in just a moment. The 49ers got to save him from himself because he'd be crazy. But here's Alex Smith. Alex Smith is now diving into YouTube and doing some other shows as an analyst. I think he's going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
He knows QBs.
Smart guy.
Here he is talking about Brock Purdy on the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah, I do this in like all these pieces that I'm going to talking to these QBs is kind of like what makes asking the guys themselves. Everybody has an opinion on what makes a good quarterback, and I went around and wanted to talk to everybody, right? Like ask Aaron what makes a good quarterback. If you're a GM, who are you drafting? What are you looking for? And I think like we've just been off base on quarterbacks, right? Like they aren't measurables. It's nothing you can actually gain from the combine, right? Like I just don't think that stuff matters playing quarterback in the NFL. There's so many things that are not quantifiable, and you have to be able to like sit down with somebody, find how they're like wired, how they're motivated, right? You got to turn on the film and see what kind of instincts they have. Certainly, for Purdy, like I think he's got the most courage in the pocket than anybody in the NFL. I mean, this guy stands in there and take hits, and he is just like unflinching, right? Like his focus downfield never wavers. It's a gift to his. Obviously, he's accurate, but like I think that poise and courage is something that, again, like how do you quantify it? And we're so caught up in size and speed and arm strength and hand size and like that. And like again, none of that stuff I really think matters. This guy can play ball, and he's been playing ball at a high level for a long time, and yet again he falls to the last pick in the draft. Like how does that happen? So I think it's a fascinating discussion. Man, he's a baller, man. I don't know how you don't turn on the film the last couple of years and see what he's doing week in and week out. I know it's a good situation, but there's not a good quarterback in the NFL that's not in a good situation. So I'm a huge fan of Brock's, man. I think he's a huge reason why they're so good and going to continue to be good.
Well, he's wrong about one thing. Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback. He's in a bad situation.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but that's really not what he's saying. He's saying that's how you become a good quarterback, to be surrounded by talent. It's hard to be a good quarterback when you don't have talent around you.
And that's true, but the way he said it.
Because people disparage Purdy. Oh, well, that's just because he has all that talent around him. Well, most of the good ones do.
That's true. I do think that Purdy benefits from, one, his coach, and two, the ridiculous amount of talent he has around him.
Well, so does Mahomes. So does Tua.
That's true, but Mahomes would be great no matter which team you put him on. That's the difference.
Well, there's some teams I'd like to see him on to see that.
Well, so are you saying you only think Patrick would be successful with the Chiefs?
No, that's not what I said. I'm saying he wouldn't be as great with somebody that's not a good team as he is with the Chiefs.
Well, yeah, we'll just agree to disagree on that. John Elway was great in bad situations, and he was great in good situations. Great quarterbacks, in my opinion, are great no matter what the surroundings they have around them. That's just how I see it. Elway was surrounded by basically nothing for the first half of his career, and he was still great. He still won an MVP.
He had a lot of disparagers until he won a Super Bowl.
I understand that, but he did win an MVP and was a great player. You agree with that. He was great before he won a Super Bowl.
Right. Well, so was Fouts. He was great, too. Never did win a Super Bowl.
But again, I'm not trying to disparage Brock Purdy. I'm just saying that the elite quarterbacks, like the best of the best that we've seen throughout the course of their career, they can go anywhere and be great because they're elite, right? That's what they do. Peyton Manning, whether it's the Colts or the Broncos or wherever he ends up, I think he's going to be Peyton Manning. Joe Montana would fit that bill. Dan Marino, John Elway, Tom Brady.
Would he win as much?
Which quarterback?
Any of them that are elite. Would they win as much on a bad team?
Well, it just depends on the team and the situation. My guess is that they would find a way to win games because, again, how did Sando define elite quarterback? They can win games on their own. And that's really what great quarterbacks do. Yeah.
Most of them with pretty good teams, though.
I mean, Elway took horrific teams to 3 Super Bowls. Bad teams with below-average defenses, no running game, and the 3 amigos. And he got them in Super Bowls. So, yeah, you can win a lot of games on teams that are subpar because a great quarterback can cover a lot of sins.
All right.
And Brock Purdy,
I think he's a great quarterback.
Great?
Yeah, I think he's a great quarterback.
Well,
the numbers tell you that.
He's got great numbers.
Yeah.
But he's not even a top-tier quarterback in the NFL, so I don't know how you can define him as great.
He will be. It's like you can't escape the fact that he was taken last in the draft, and people won't get over that because for a year they said, it's going to all fall apart late in the season, or wait till they get in the playoffs. He'll never get him to the Super Bowl, on and on and on.
I mean, Tom Brady was taken late, and I had no issue believing he was great. I don't care where Brock Purdy was drafted, but his size.
But the first year you said it was all going to fall apart. He couldn't get him to a Super Bowl.
I said he couldn't win a Super Bowl because he can't beat the best of the best. So, no, I don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl.
Them, right.
And when they pay him, that's when you're really going to see the evidence. Rip City Drive.
Better watch your behind if it's in our way. Don't stop believing. Yeah, don't stop believing. We've got the power. We've got the heart. We've got the soul.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's now 5 o'clock. Chad here, checking the college football scoreboard. First quarter, 6 minutes and 37 seconds to go. It's on ESPN. Arizona State leads Texas State by a score of 7-0. We got Thursday night football coming up tonight. AFC East matchup. Kickoff in 15 minutes on Prime TV. Bills are at the Dolphins. Josh Allen 10-2 against the Dolphins in the regular season. Miami favored by 2.5. Kickoff is at 5:15. Josh Allen also undefeated on Thursday nights. Coming up at 5:20, we're going to talk with Brooke Olzendam as the Blazers get ready to kick off their Rip City Rally. Civil War Saturday kickoff from Research Stadium at 12:30. Pregame at 10:30. You can listen to it on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KEX. You know, Godfather, I know you're a big fan of Brock Purdy, and you just referred to him as a great quarterback. The good news is for him is that he'll have a chance to prove his detractors wrong because they're going to have to pay him big money after this upcoming season, and the estimates are he's going to make around $60 million a year. Once they pay him, they're not going to have the money or the resources to have all the bells and whistles they have around him right now, and so then we'll be able to find out if he can go out and improve the play of the guys around him and continue to lead them to victories and put up big numbers. So he'll have his chance to prove them wrong.
I think it's entirely possible I'm overestimating Brock Purdy after sitting here for 2 years listening to you and Brian Noe talk about Purdy Palooza. Oh, wait till the playoffs. Oh, wait till whatever. Let him get to the Super Bowl once. Let's see how well he's done it. He's done it. And I still don't hear people saying, "No, we were probably wrong about that Purdy guy. He's pretty good."
Yeah, he's pretty good. I'm not going to call him great. You just referred to him as great. I'm not going to put him in that level.
Yeah,
he's not even a top-tier quarterback.
He's one of the best in the league.
He's second tier, according to Sando, based on his interviews with all the executives and coaches.
Says. Look at the numbers.
It's not what Sando said. It's what the executives and the coaches around the league said.
Okay.
I know what the numbers say. There's a lot of quarterbacks that put up big numbers, but, you know, you put him in the great category. I mean, he's not a top-tier quarterback.
He put up great numbers for a great team. I mean,
yeah, and that's what I think.
They had other quarterbacks there that weren't doing that.
I believe that Brock Purdy is a product of a phenomenal head coach and, I mean, arguably the best roster in the NFL. I mean, there aren't too many guys working with more talent than what he has to work with on the offensive side of the ball. Best left tackle in the game, great receiving core, great tight end, best running back in the game. I mean, he's got all the tools.
I believe what Alex Smith said. All the good quarterbacks have good rosters around them. That's what it looks like.
Well, not all great quarterbacks have had good rosters around them. We've already established that. Some quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that have great quarterbacks that have good rosters around them, they win championships. The ones who don't still find a way to win games.
Unless they're blocked by Tom Brady.
Well, I mean, Tom Brady didn't win the Super Bowl every year.
It depends on who's in the league at the same time you are.
Well, okay. Who's blocking Purdy? Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah. He's blocking everybody, isn't he?
Well, he's not going to win it. He hasn't won it every year he's been in the league.
Okay.
So, no, I don't have a problem with Purdy. I like Purdy. He's a great dude, and he does exactly what Shanahan asked him to do. He runs the offense, he runs the play as it's designed, and he puts the ball in the hands of his playmakers.
So he's a robot. Is that what you're saying?
He does exactly what Shanahan asked him to do. Yeah.
Well, that's not easy. There's a bunch of guys that tried to do everything that Shanahan asked him to do.
Well, Garoppolo did, and he got him to a Super Bowl doing what Shanahan asked. And Garoppolo is not a great quarterback. There are a lot of quarterbacks that could succeed with Kyle Shanahan because he's a wizard.
Well, Garoppolo at that point was a pretty good quarterback.
No one would ever describe Jimmy Garoppolo as a great quarterback.
I didn't say great. He was a pretty good quarterback at that time.
Yeah, a good quarterback who was benefited greatly by having tremendous talent around him and a phenomenal head coach. But there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a problem with Purdy. I like him. He's a good dude, smart, accurate with the football.
You made fun of him for 2 or 3 years.
I didn't make fun of him.
Well, of course you did. Purdy Palooza.
That was Brian Noe that came up with that.
Well, you didn't use it? Come on.
No, I think it's funny. I don't have a problem with Purdy. I just don't think he's great. I think you using the term great on Brock Purdy's crazy talk. No one in the league considers him top tier. We have
They
to,
will after this year.
They will?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
they will.
All right. So you put him up there with do you think he's better than Josh Allen?
I think he's as good as Josh Allen, yeah.
You think
I
he's
do.
better than
He's a different kind of quarterback. He doesn't run, but he's a much better passer.
You think he's better
much
than Joe
more
Burrow?
accurate. The way Joe Burrow's been looking the last year and a half, yeah.
Okay, so he's better than Joe Burrow. What about Lamar Jackson?
Oh, yeah.
Better than a two-time MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's crazy talk. But
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not a Lamar Jackson fan. Never
Okay.
have been.
all right,
I don't like the way he plays.
okay.
He can't throw the ball.
I'm just
He
saying that
won't
that's
throw the ball, one or the other. I'm not sure which.
okay. So you're basically saying that Purdy's right up there with Patrick Mahomes.
He's not as good as Patrick Mahomes.
No, I
never
said you're
that.
right up there in that level with Patrick Mahomes.
No,
Because right now,
Patrick
right
Mahomes
behind him
is
is
better
Josh Allen
than
and Joe
him.
Burrow.
Patrick Mahomes is better than him. You just told me you don't think Josh Allen is up there with.
I think Patrick Mahomes is in a. I think he's the only great quarterback in the league right
Okay.
now.
All right.
Yeah. Everyone else has got some stuff to prove. Allen turns it over too much. Burrow is great, but he's got injury issues. So I don't know.
I think Mahomes being in the league right now has ruined it for other quarterbacks because he's great, but then nobody else can be considered great either because he is.
No, I'm just saying that Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback who can win games by himself. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback who needs the support of the system and the players around him.
Well, all right.
What's wrong
I'd
with
like
that?
to see Patrick Mahomes without Andy Reid coaching him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Patrick Mahomes
He
can
does
make any coach
exactly
look
what
good.
Andy Reid wants him to do.
No,
He
there's a
doesn't?
combination there. I think Patrick Mahomes would have success no matter where he goes. There's no question in my mind. He's that good. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, we're talking about is you can make the argument right now that he's the greatest quarterback of all time.
Whoa.
I mean, I'd make the argument that he's right there with Tom Brady or Joe Montana or John Elway, whoever you want. I'd put Mahomes on that level.
That's a real recency bias, I think.
It's not recency bias. I'm just judging it based on the quarterbacks I've seen play football. I think Patrick Mahomes is as good as it's ever been in the NFL. That you want to put Tom Brady ahead of him because he's got more championships, I'm fine with that. Most people will because Brady's got the rings, but
Yeah, I'm not a ring culture guy either. I don't. I think that's a bad way to.
okay, so if you
judge
take the rings out of it, Patrick
Mhm.
Mahomes is as good as any quarterback I've ever seen play football in my lifetime.
As good as Elway.
He's as good as Elway.
Whew.
Yes, and I hold Elway in the highest of regard.
Yeah, I think Elway, Montana, those guys were really good.
Yeah.
And I don't think Montana was a robot of Bill Walsh.
No, he went to Kansas City and nearly got them in the Super Bowl in '93. So Montana has proven that he can go anywhere and have success. Yeah, Montana's great. It was terrific. Now, Bill Walsh obviously put him in a system that was great for his talents, but Joe Montana took the West Coast to a different level. So I think Bill
Well,
Walsh
Steve
was a
Young
genius.
did that too. So
Yeah, Steve Young did it well too. Another Hall of Fame quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice when you can go from Joe Montana to Steve Young. I mean,
For
those are two
sure.
of the very best. But yeah, I put Patrick Mahomes on the level with any of those guys. All right, the big news from last night: the Pac-12 has expanded by 4 teams. Who are the teams here? Boise State, Fresno State, Colorado State. There's one other. Who are we missing here?
You said
So we got Boise, Fresno, Colorado State, San Diego State.
Right.
Those are your 4.
I think it's a nice group. They did take the 4
Best brands.
biggest brands. That's what Brink said that, right? Didn't
Yeah.
Brink say that? They
A
took
number of people have said that.
Yeah, those not only their teams, but their brand is well known, I would say.
And the Pac-12 will use some of their current cash to be able to help those teams get out of their
They're
current
gonna
deals
help
with the
them
Mountain West.
Pay their way out of the league. Yes. Which is nice that they can do that because those schools probably, I'm not sure how many of them are funded well enough to pay their own way out.
You know, one thing you and I have been saying now for weeks, the Pac-12, Oregon State, Washington State must know something.
They were too smug about their situation, Chad. We talked about it endlessly. It's like when they passed on the scheduling deal
Yeah.
with the Mountain West. It's like, man, they're sitting there pretty confident of their situation.
Yeah.
There's something going. And this thing they've done last night, that has to have been in the works for weeks, if not months. I would say months, probably, to make a deal like this and to get all four of them coming in on the same day in the same situation. They've been working on that a long time.
Yeah, that's been in the works for quite some time. And the one area that I agree with Alex Brink on is that you don't get those four schools to agree to join right now unless they already know who the next two schools are going to be to get a date.
Although there's also people are saying that they get a say on who the other two schools will be.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they've already had their say. That's possible, too.
Yeah. There's no way they haven't had those discussions. And even if the other two schools, if it's not a done deal behind closed doors right now or through back channels, they have a pretty good idea of who it's going to be.
Well, and if it's Stanford and Cal, they really couldn't announce it right now.
No.
Because the situation isn't right with the ACC. So you'd have to wait until they can somehow escape the prison that is the ACC.
If it is Stanford and Cal, is it possible that through back channels that Stanford and Cal is already in the process of negotiating their way out?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at that at all, especially with the chaos that the ACC is in right now. They see that as an opportunity probably to make their escape.
What schools do you like? If it's not Stanford and Cal, what are one or two other schools you'd like to see them at?
I like UNLV a lot because of who it is and the fact that they finally got their football straightened out. They have a good coach. They're on the upswing. I like them a lot. I think Air Force would be a fit just because it's a rock-solid program, always has been, or at least it has been for a long time. And then people keep bringing up Tulane. I don't like the idea that it's as far east as it is because it wouldn't really fit. Tulane makes sense. UT San Antonio makes sense. You bring UNLV in, and I don't really care who the other one is. I think UNLV is just a natural.
I like access into Texas with UTSA and Texas State. I think that's a good idea. The one thing that Wilner said about Tulane is that, New Orleans, you get a pretty good TV market there, but also it gives you an in into a very rich recruiting area.
You get into the Southeast.
Yeah, and that's an advantage. But you're right. Some of the travel for some of the smaller sports would become a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. I'm happy for Oregon State and Washington State. It's not the best situation, but this is a pretty darn good situation based on how things were. And you're right. They were acting very smug considering how dire things looked. They knew what was going on.
I remember we talked about it, and we thought they probably, given the situation, ought to be in panic mode right now.
Yeah, and there was no panic.
And they weren't.
It's good. And there will be networks out there looking to get a piece of the action.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say there will be lawyers. Andrew Brandt's saying all the time.
And there's going to be lawyers
there
involved as well.
Probably will be, yeah.
All right, the Portland Trailblazers getting ready to kick off their summer series, the Rip City Rally. Brooke Olzendam, their television sideline reporter extraordinaire, is going to join us coming up next here on the Rip City Drive. All right, your Portland Trailblazers are getting ready to kick off the Rip City Rally, and it's pretty awesome. They get a chance to tour around the state and go to some of the smaller communities to bring the Trailblazers to you, and we're going to discuss that. Joining us right now is your Trailblazers television sideline reporter and studio host. It's Brooke Olzendam who's back on the show. Brooke, it's great to have you back on the show. It's great to talk with you. And first things first, I don't know if you saw the picture I put up on social media yesterday, but I came across this little promo for the Blazers' upcoming season on their broadcast side. And did you give Travis Demers permission to use your likeness in his team photo?
No, I was dying, though. You know, like when you open up either Twitter or Instagram and you see you have like 10 to 20 like new messages or something's going on, you're like, oh no, what is this? What is this? And then I opened it. I'm like, what the heck? No, I did not. But I mean, if I were to give my permission, I would definitely give it to Travis. But that was very funny. I was a bit confused, but then I had a great laugh at it. So I appreciate you sharing that with everyone. I don't know if it's been fixed since, but you know how I feel about Travis. I love him, so I would give him my likeness if need be.
No, it's terrific. For those of you who did not see it, every year the team puts out a program basically, and in the broadcast side, they list all the broadcasters and it gives a little bio. And for Travis, it said he's entering his 5th season as a play-by-play voice of the Portland Trailblazers, and it listed off what he's done and where he's going and everything. And then next to it, it had a picture, but it was Brooke's picture. And so I saw that and I was like, man, Trav, I like your look. And I put it out there, and everyone complimented Travis on his beauty. So you got to be happy about that, Brooke.
I am. I appreciated that. No, I mean, but Travis, the kid doesn't age. I mean, he's not a kid. He's a man. He has 2 kids. But he really, every year, I swear he looks younger. So I will take that as a compliment as well. But yeah, I had a good laugh at that. So thank you for sharing.
Brooke, I got to ask you, you usually have an interesting summer. What went on with Brooke Olzendam this summer? What'd you do?
Oh, well, we're going to get into it, Dwight. It was not the most fun summer for your friend Brooke, and I talked about it on the podcast. I had a very crazy experience. I spent a lot of time at the lake. I'm so lucky that my family has a lake place in Coeur d'Alene, and so I'm blessed to be able to spend as much time as I can there in the summer. But about 2 months ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. I'd been swimming with my son all day. It was one of those weeks where it was like 100 degrees every day, and just swam, probably didn't drink enough water. Got up in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m. to go to the bathroom, and I fainted for the second time in my entire life. And Dwight, you're going to be like, wow, I can't believe that this answer's coming out of her. I fell and I broke my jaw in 2 places, and I had to have it wired and screwed shut for an entire month.
Oh, gosh.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't.
I know. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, hey, I've had a great summer, but I'm like, that's not the truth. That is not the truth. So I had a crazy summer. A huge thank you to my friends and family. They were so wonderful. They just came through in the clutch, and I had to, I've never had anything like that happen to me before. And so lots of smoothies, lots of figuring out what you can eat when you can't open your mouth. I have a plate in my chin for the rest of my life. So that's at least I have a war wound from it. But it was a really weird summer. And huge thanks to my mom and dad and Scott, my mom's husband, for just coming in the clutch and just really saving me, because it was an intense situation. And I had emergency surgery the morning it happened. I went straight to Kootenai County, which is an hour, the closest ER to our cabin, and got it done. But yeah, it really threw a wrench in what I like to do the most, and that's talk. So I had to figure out other ways to communicate.
That's amazing.
I will tell you this. It was crazy. It was truly crazy. But I will say, like, everything's fixed. I had some teeth knocked out because of it. I could have fallen in a much worse position. I didn't hit my head, hit my chin. And again, breaking your jaw is no walk in the park, but it could have been so much worse. It could have been a head injury or something like that. And so everything is back in place now. I had some dental work last week in Spokane with my wonderful dentist who lives there, a good family friend. And I'm back to normal now. And so actually I feel like I'm talking weird when I talk to you. Everyone else says I sound the same, but you kind of get in your head about it.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'm going to get used to it. But yeah, to answer your question, Dwight, I had a weird summer.
Well, you do sound the same.
I'll see you. Thank you.
Yeah, you do. You sound the same. So is it everything's normal now and like no pain and you're back to being yourself?
I would say this. So it's a dull pain. It's a soreness, right? Because it was broken, like I said, in 2 places. So when it happened, I was literally, I don't mean to gross you guys out, but I was holding it in place. I could feel it. I'm like, this is not good. And so it was fused back together by the wiring and screwing shut of it. but they don't do it as long as they used to do it because it created like atrophy where your jaw wouldn't go back to normal and you couldn't even open it. So they only do it for a month now. It used to be 2 months. So I still have to eat soft foods and really make sure I'm just taking care of it because it does have a dull ache. And if I push it a little bit, maybe eat something I shouldn't, isn't on my list, the next day it might be a little bit sore. So I'm doing a much better job of making sure I'm following the rules because I do pay for it if I don't.
See, I see what's going on here. You're such a great reporter for the Trailblazers that you wanted to suffer an injury to understand what it's like to go through a rehab. So when Blazers deal with injuries, you can relate to them. It's perfect.
Exactly. I took one for the team, literally. I took one down for the team on the ground, and it was something that I'll never forget. But I've actually learned a lot. Like, it's weird to say, but I started, really thinking about like what I would put in my smoothies. So I'm taking magnesium, I'm taking fish oil, I'm doing all these things that I normally wouldn't think about, and I'm really I focused on my health because that was all I could do for a month. So everything I could put into my smoothies that I knew was going to be helpful for me was wonderful. And my hair is like the best it's ever been. This is such a weird thing to be talking about. My hair is the healthiest it's ever been. My skin is. I've actually really learned how to take care of myself and all the nutrients I need and all the vitamins and all that stuff. So in a weird way, it was a blessing. But yes, I can definitely appreciate when athletes go through a rehab process because your girl went through a big one this summer.
That's amazing. We're talking to Brooke Goldsendam, Portland Trailblazers here on the Rip City Drive. Have you had a chance to talk to any of the players, Scoot, or anyone else? And if so, how's their summer been?
I haven't talked to. I went into the practice facility a week ago, and guys are all filtering in. If they're not all, I'm pretty sure they're all in town, if not close to everyone in town. But I know that Scoot's been very busy. Obviously, I follow all the players, but he's been very busy with his camps and working out and making sure he's in the best shape possible before it starts. What I'm really looking forward to is seeing him. And we talked about this, Chad, I believe, when it was the Fan Fest, but with a healthy. Speaking about health. A healthy Shaden Sharp getting him to play alongside Scoot. I think the sooner they can get in there on the floor and start practicing together, it's going to be great that they're both healthy to start the season. And I just really look forward to seeing how those two play off of each other because we really didn't get a chance to see it or at least really see it on the floor as much as we would have liked last year. But yeah, they're getting in town. They're all in town, if not all of them, close to all of them. And I'm excited. I'm excited because with the Rip City Rally, which I know we'll get to, is kind of like the kickoff for me where, okay, the season's about to start and then the Rip City Rally is on and it's training camp and we're off and running into preseason. So they're all here. They're all getting ready and I'm getting pumped up for the season. I know you guys are too.
The one thing I wanted to ask you about, though, Brooke, the big story of the day is the Pac-2 adding 4 teams, 4 schools. And I know you're a Pac-12 girl, I think, and Washington State, you're very close to Washington State. What do you think about the whole thing?
I think it's great. I mean, I feel like we took our hits, and we tried. Oregon State and Washington State, already there was a kinship there. Kind of like, the state schools and, Big Brother, Oregon and UW. And so when all that happened, at first I feel like it happened really quickly. And then I figured something would happen where they'd figure out they'd join a squad, they'd join another conference and nothing was happening. So when I saw that news, I was relieved and I was excited. I love the schools that have joined. I think it's a great step moving forward. And, I mean, we can watch our games on TV. That's a plus. Some other teams can't do that. But I think it's great. I love the schools. I think it's a step forward. It's a step maybe moving forward to even bigger things. But I'm glad. I'm really happy for it. I was very happy when I saw that news. I was very pleased because, we kind of needed some good news.
No question about it. Brooke Goldsendam here on the Rip City Drive. All right. The Rip City Rally Fair is coming up, and there's going to be stops on September 16th in Coos Bay, September 17th in Florence, Toledo on the 18th, Corvallis the 19th, and it finishes up in Woodburn on September 20th. And from my understanding, you're going to have the 1977 championship trophy where people can take a picture with. We know that Blaze and Doug are going to be there. Talk to us about the rally and the purpose behind it and what it means for you to be able to go out to these other communities where you can take the team to their town.
Yes, Chad, it's like my favorite thing. I look forward to it every summer. It's not just about, but it's very much focused on letting all these communities know that, Portland is where the team plays, and we love it when you make the trek from your smaller town to Portland to come watch the team play. But this is the entire state's team. This is Southwest Washington's team. Like, we just want everyone to know that we appreciate your support no matter where you are. if you're in the area and you can come to games, or if you can't, it's too far and you just watch from home, we still appreciate you. So that's really number one. And it's really fun. We go to elementary schools, we do PE takeovers. We go into the junior highs and high schools and do career panels where I'm doing 3 this week, or then the following week I'm doing 3. And our friends at Moda Health, they're just an amazing partner. They sponsor the whole thing. And their kind of goal of it, and we, of course, join in, is to really talk to kids about being active. Like, I know you love your video games and all that, but every once in a while, put down the video games, go outside, meet your friends at the park, shoot some hoops, or, play baseball, whatever, get outside and do stuff. And also make healthy choices in terms of, what you're eating, and just to be active and healthy. And so Moda Health, that's why we love being partners with them so much, is because they come and they really kind of educate kids on what's important and what some choices you can make. So that's really a huge part of it as well. So it's back and forth. It's getting kids out there to be a part of our fairs, a part of all the activities, but also if you have questions about, how can I be the most active and healthy I can be? Moda's there to answer all your questions, and we love our Moda people. So then they'll be on the career panels with me as well. So if you're the kids that are interested in sports media, or if they're interested in healthcare, or if they're interested in anything, PR, we have some of our members of our organization come from all over, every aspect of what we do with the Trailblazers. And if they have questions about what they do, they ask them at the panel, and it's just really fun to some of these towns I've never been to, and so I get so excited. Like I have been to Coos Bay and Florence, and I've obviously been to Corvallis, but I have not been to Toledo Phillips, and I'm looking forward to that. But it's really fun to get out there and just meet people, and I love the stories. I swear it'll be like a 5-year-old will come up and like, I love Scoot. And then you'll have like his grandpa saying, I was at the 77 championship game. I was there in the second row. You hear all these stories of Blazers fans throughout their history, like, again, 5-year-old to 70-year-old. And those are my favorite ones, just all over the board. Blazers fans from different eras, but they still are, and they're excited about the team, but they have been fans since they were, in elementary school. I love hearing the stories. And they come up and they have their jerseys on. You see Bill Walton jerseys. You see Dame jerseys, you see Scoot jerseys, you see them all. And so it's my favorite part, is just interacting with the people that I know are fans. Maybe you can't come to all the games, but they still are there to support.
Brooke, what's it like in those small towns when you guys show up? I can't even imagine the sensation that it creates within those communities. Describe what it's like.
Yeah, well, I'll my favorite things that happen pretty consistently. People ask me if I'm a Blazer dancer, and I'm like, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever asked me. Thank you so much. No, I cannot dance to save my life. And then everyone's like, thinks Lamar is a player. And he has to like, no, I'm a broadcaster. And then after that happens, we've notched those off. Then it really is pure joy. They're just so excited. And we talk to the mayor. We bring in all, people that are in the community, leaders in the community, and they are so grateful. It's the coolest thing. Like, thank you so much for choosing our town. This is one of the most exciting things that's happened, to our city in a long time. We go to the city hall, we give them a jersey, we give them a different gift every year, and it kind of shows where last year was a map of all the stops, and it was like it was beautiful, it was like a piece of art. We gave that to every city hall that they could put up wherever they wanted to, and they could put that jersey wherever they want, basketball. And they just love it. They get there early. They don't want to leave when it's time to shut down. They kind of linger, and it's really cool to see all the kids at the elementary schools earlier in the day. When you go to do the PE takeover, I'll be like, "Are you going to come to the fair later?" And they're like, "Oh yes, we've been looking forward. Yes, well, my whole family's coming. I'm bringing my cousins. They're coming in from a different city, and they all show up at the fair. And so you see these kids throughout the day, and then the big celebration at the end is the fair, where you can join in, you can do the 3-point competition, you can do skills competition. There's so many different things you can do, but they love it, right? It's one of the coolest things just to see them light up. Like, this is in our town. This is so cool.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons I love it.
I think the other thing to point out, too, for those who are listening that want to take part in one of the Rip City rallies in Coos Bay, Florence, Toledo, Corvallis, or Woodburn, it's free. There's no charge. You can stop by.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely free, and you can get a lot of goodies. There are booths, all different kinds of booths. You can ask about dental care. Speaking of, didn't think I'd be talking about dental care as much as I have on this call, but you can ask about that. You get free goodies. You get toothbrushes, stuff like that. Kind of explain the best way to take care of your teeth, best way to take care of your health. You get little goodies from all the different booths. So it's definitely free, 100% free, and you will walk away with swag. No matter if you participate, you could walk home with a lot of swag. If not, you'll have some fun little goodies that we all bring. And there's a ton of games, and just from ages 2 to 18 to adults can be in the adult 3-point competition. So the whole family can be involved. And yes, the number one thing, it's really hard to find free things these days, and this is absolutely free.
Hey, Brooke, how are things going with your foundation, Brooke Heart Your Heart?
Amazing. I just choke up every time I talk about it. Every year, I am just blown away by the support. We've raised over $100,000 over the last 4 or 5 years that we've done it, 5 years. And every year, it's one of those things where I'm so touched and moved by all the donations. The following year, I'm like, there's no way people are we still going to be able to, reach our goals? Because we were so lucky last year, and we always do. And our fans and the community comes together, and they just rally around it. And it's something that I can barely put into words, you guys, like how much it means to me. And I'm so appreciative of our organization and the people that help me with it. And the backing, and obviously, as you guys know, they match up to $5,000, which is always a huge, part of what we donate to the AHA every year. So it's doing great. And I have to say, we're trying to figure out when we're doing merch now. We've done hats, we did a beanie, and we have to figure out what our next year's piece of merch is going to be that we sell, to which all proceeds go to the AHA. So if you guys have any ideas, please let me know. If you think of anything, holler at me.
Brooke, I'm curious. I can't let you get away without just a thought about the upcoming season. What do you think? How are you picturing this season to go down?
Well, you think, Dwight, there are a lot of unknowns. We just had, so many injuries last season that we couldn't really kind of figure out where our footing was. So I think this year is exciting for me because I just loved what I saw from DeAndre Ayton, especially after All-Star break, and what he brought to the table. It was fantastic. And then I've been very impressed with our new rookie. I'm sure you guys watched the Summer League, but Donovan was just a defensive beast.
We liked him.
And I love him. Love. And so I'm really excited to see. And he comes in as a winner, that's what he does. That's what he knows. So I'm really excited to see how he translates that game to the NBA level. I think it's going to be more seamless than a lot of big guys we've seen in their first year. I just have a feeling I have a feeling he's going to come out and contribute right away. But it's exciting because a lot of things that we just really wanted to see last year but couldn't because of injuries, we'll be able to now. And as I mentioned earlier, Shaden with Scoot, I just can't wait to see that. But yeah, I know you guys have talked about, how the game has changed in terms of big men, and now you got two of them, two very strong ones on our team with DeAndre and Donovan. I'm looking really forward to see how they interact with someone like Scoot, who is such a great contributor and facilitator, and I think he's gonna make a huge jump from last year to this. And then with the healthy Shaden, I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting. Like just the unknown for me is exciting. We had such a string there, years ago when I first started where, made the playoffs every year, had a consistent group, pretty much the same guys. That was obviously very fun because, you're going to the playoffs. But I actually look forward to, what's going to happen this season. I'm not entirely sure. I've always had very high hopes and high expectations and positive outlook. But this year it's exciting for me because I think we're going to see a lot of things we didn't get the opportunity to last year. And so that's kind of what I'm most looking forward to.
All right, Brooke Olzendam, Portland Trailblazers here on the Rip City Drive. Have fun on the Rip City Rally, which will kick off next week. Brooke, we appreciate your time on the show and can't wait for the brand new season, but great to hear from you.
You too. I miss you guys. That's the one thing about the off season. You don't see your media buddies as much anymore. So I love that I was able to come on and chat with you guys today.
All right, we'll catch up soon and have fun on the tour.
Thanks, guys.
You got it. There's Brooke. Boy, a busted jaw, wired shut. That's brutal.
I could tell you, I didn't ask her about it because I didn't want to put her in a position, but a lot of times when you have your jaw wired shut, you have to carry a pair of pliers or like bolt cutters with you, because if you were to get sick at any time, you got to cut those wires, because if you were to regurgitate, choke yourself.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yikers.
I saw Bill Buckner play AAA baseball. He was with Spokane. They came here. He was playing baseball with his jaw wired shut.
Wow.
And he was actually carrying those things in his back pocket just in case something would happen and he would get nauseous. You just can't take that chance.
Just thinking about your jaw getting busted, that's painful right there.
Oh, gosh. Not being able to eat for a month?
I remember watching a preseason game one year. Bill Romanowski came through and blasted Kerry Collins, broke his jaw.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's not good. All right, we'll come back. We got some high fives to hand out. Big thanks to Brooke Olzendam. Always nice to catch up with her. It's hard to believe, but Trailblazer Media Day coming up on September 30th. The preseason will kick off in early October. You got the Rip City Drive. Well, this is about as obvious of a high five as you can get. After the story that Brooke Olzendam just told us, fainting, taking a fall, breaking her jaw, and then having to spend the rest of the summer with her mouth wired shut, going through the recovery process. And you talked about the pliers.
Yeah.
I had never heard of that before, and she did respond to you and say yes. And where are they at now?
She had to have wire cutters with her at all times.
Yes.
They are now in a frame hanging in the kitchen of the cabin at the lake.
Well, Brooke,
Gosh,
you get the high five today for being tough.
she is tough. Okay, let me give you, I have to give a high five to the Pac-2, Pac-12, Pac whatever you want to call them. Oregon State and Washington State, you did a fine job.
Hey, Shacker, are you excited about some of the travel to the new locations you'll be able to go to now with your job with the Beavs?
Yeah, but they just were at San Diego State. Great trip, great stadium. You mentioned that you would like to see a game at Snapdragon down there where Qualcomm, Jack Murphy Stadium
It was
used to
nice,
be.
wasn't it?
Yeah. It was the hottest day of the year in San Diego, so it was nice and toasty this last weekend for the Beavs when they got their shutout win. I'm looking forward to another trip down there with the Beavs.
Nice. That was a big deal. That's
You
a big
looking
deal.
forward to those trips to Boise and Fresno?
Yeah, I can't wait. Fresno State was a couple of years ago. That was fun.
You know, I've been to Boise multiple times going out there on a road trip with my son. I got to admit, that whole downtown area of Boise, it's very clean. It's very nice. And
Yeah.
the whole area around the stadium is beautiful. And they've got this beautiful walkway where you can ride bikes or walk along the riverfront. And then the stadium sits right off there.
Yeah.
That's a nice spot. I could live out there. It's drier than it is here. They have good golfing in the area. That's not a bad spot.
No, it's not really. I've been to games, not in the new stadium, but in the old stadium at San Diego State, Boise State, and Fresno State. But I've never been to one at Colorado State, although I have been to one at Colorado and Air Force, actually.
I've been to multiple games at Air Force. Love going there for games. It's terrific. They got the band pit where the band will play before games, and the tradition is to drop money down the pit for the band. And so people do that. They always have the flyover, obviously, because you're at Air Force, 6,500 feet above sea level, which is pretty nice. I've been to Colorado State, and Fort Collins is beautiful, but I've been to the old stadium that was right at the foothills. I haven't been there since they put up the new stadium, which I've been told is really nice.
I didn't know they had a new stadium there.
Yeah, I think it
Cool.
went in like around 2017 or 2018. It's supposed to be pretty darn good for a smaller school.
Well, they're going to some places that draw real well for football, too. I don't know if you noticed that tweet, but Fresno State opened at home to 41,000 people this year. That's bigger than Oregon State can hold.
They got a good following down there.
Yeah, they do.
And
Pat Hill was the coach for so long, and he really created all that, I think, Chad.
Yeah, Pat Hill, legend.
Yeah.
I only went to one game at the old Jack Murphy Stadium. That was I saw the Mets and Padres in a game there, and it was pretty cool because Mike Darr, who has since passed away, hit a home run in the in the bottom of the eighth, which gave the Padres the lead, and that's all we cared about because we wanted to hear Hell's Bells and have Hoffman come in and close.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he did. He came in, and then Mike Piazza, who was out of the lineup today, came in to pinch hit, and you could tell he looked kind of tired, and he just couldn't catch up to the heat that Hoffman was bringing. Ricky Henderson was playing for
San Diego
at the time.
Yeah.
Huh. That's the only game I went to there. I never went to a football game at the old Murph.
I went to a Super Bowl there once. That was the Elway Super Bowl. Helicopter.
That's the only football game you went to there?
I think it is, Chad.
Wow.
Lots of baseball games. I covered a World Series there when they were playing the Yankees one year.
When,
the Scott Brocious World
the
Series.
The Brocious MVP series.
Yeah.
Man, the Yankees dominated that series.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. They were just too good for him.
I think of all of Torrey's teams, that was his best one, that team. They dominated competition that year.
Yeah, they were really good. And as somebody who kind of grew up not liking the Yankees much, that was kind of hard to take.
But it was probably easier for you because Scott Brocious is a local dude who's cool. He's big time. Yeah. Where else have I been? I've been to CU. Boulder's a great place to see a game. It's beautiful up
Yeah,
there.
it is.
Boulder's spectacular.
I went to a game. I think it was the Ducks. Ducks were playing there, yeah. And I was walking down at the end of the game down towards the locker room, you know where that is, kind of up the driveway there.
Yep.
And somebody yelled at me. I turned around. It was Andre Miller. He was at the game.
He was?
Yeah, I think he had a relative playing. I think he had somebody playing for the Ducks who was like a cousin or something.
Oh, that's
like
cool.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful up there. Yeah, there's a lot of. I just like traveling around and seeing some of the different communities, you know, where they play football or, you know, you see a basketball game or some of the different spots. That's fun. I enjoy that. But props to the Pac-2, Oregon State and Washington State playing it cool. And when we thought, wait a second, shouldn't you be a little more panicked right now? You do realize that you're in a dire straits,
Yeah,
right?
What are you guys? This makes no sense. Why aren't they just desperate?
You have no conference, and eventually you're going to have no money. How are you going to compete?
And you've turned down a schedule of games for next season. Who are you going to play?
Yeah. The only thing that made sense at that point when that news came out was like, well, they've got plans somewhere.
They got something in their pocket.
And
they did.
Boy, Cal and Stanford, that would be the coup right there if you could pull that one off.
Oh, gosh. That would be huge.
Well, big thanks to multiple people today. Alex Brink was terrific.
Yes.
Gosh, that guy's good. Brooke Olzendam was awesome. Brooke, you're tough. And obviously Justin Myers, who's going to have a big party on Saturday. You should go over there. He invited you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be in there if the Ducks are losing.
And you're around drunk, mad Duck fans.
Yeah, he didn't paint a very pretty picture of what it might look like.
Yeah, that could be a dicey situation for you.
Yes, I'm not sure about it.
All right, big thanks to Michael Shacker. Have a good weekend, my friend. Chris Burkhardt will be in tomorrow. All right, you guys have a good night. We're back tomorrow with the Rip City Drive at 3. I think Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, will join us. And Justin Myers, Fancy Coffee Friday kicking off at 6 in the morning.